Thank you very much for having me at this great foundation of intellectual thought and contribution, in particular to our great civilization, Western civilization. And thank you, Madam Rajavi. First of all, I thank you for involving me in this movement 17 years ago. It has been one of the most satisfying, one of the most exciting, one of the most fulfilling things that I've done, and maybe the most. And whenever you thank me, I feel guilty because I should thank you. It's rare in your life that any of us get a chance to fight for freedom. And I think that may be the highest calling you can have, fighting for freedom, for yourself, for your family, and for others, because it's all connected. The poem, One Man is an Island, has been interpreted many ways, but that may be one way to interpret it. The question is, well, two questions. Is the regime going to fall? And then what is going to happen? So I do think that there's a lot of doubt about whether the regime will fall. And I think you have to divide that doubt into two. One are the enemies of freedom, the enemies of Western civilization, even broader than that, freedom, the enemies in particular of the United States, who despise us, hate us, and it doesn't really affect us as much as you think, because we're proud of it. A man is known by his enemies. And when I see who our enemies are and who are the ones that deride and degrade and our great experiment in freedom, the United States, I realize how strong we really are, how weak they are in what we've accomplished and what they've accomplished. But in any event, so those in large groups who possess the national, international media would, for many people, paint the picture of an Iran that has won this war. They've won this war because they're still able to shoot a gun. Japan was able to shoot guns 11 years after the Second World War. Japan killed people 11, 12 years after the war because certain people didn't give up in the islands and elsewhere. But Japan was defeated on a given day at a given time with some people might regard as a very brave act, some people may regard as a very incorrect act, but with a single act, the war was over. This war is over. This war was actually over the day that the leader of this movement, one of the biggest murderers in the history of the world, never covered that way, the Ayatollah, was killed on day one of the war. That's an accomplishment of historic proportions. Hitler wasn't killed on the first day of the war. Mussolini wasn't killed on the first day of the war. Well, the Emperor of Japan wasn't killed on the first day of the war. Suppose they all had been killed on the first day of the Second World War. There wouldn't have been a Second World War. Millions and millions and millions of people would be alive today if that had happened. It would have fallen apart. It's falling apart. It's a large, large military enterprise. Iran's a wealthy country. The people of Iran are starving, and all that money went to the military and to the terrorists. Well, think of how much money that is. Think of how advanced they are. Their latest collaborations, and latest means 20 years with Russia, with China, with North Korea, all advanced military powers. And also think of the devastation that's been inflicted with relatively little pain for Americans, for sure. We have disabled the first line of leadership of Iran. We've disabled the second line of leadership of Iran. We're on to, we don't know what line of leadership, and we don't know if there's any leadership. It looks more like chaos. I think it isn't, I'll explain that, but we're down to a much lower level of people who are commanding this place, and it's in chaos. Monstrous homicidal dictatorships in chaos fall. It's not a question of will, it's when. And you'd almost have to be a very poor interpreter of history and watching the fall of theocracies, dictatorships, communist or fascist or some combination of both, not to realize this isn't going to last very, very long. The fact that they can fire guns occasionally at ships and rockets occasionally at enemies just means they're hanging on. We have flown 400 missions into Iran, the United States of America. Not a single one has been shot at, much less shot down. We've been fighting this war for, 4 months. We have 13 casualties. We get more in Chicago sometimes on a weekend based on domestic murder, because in some certain cities in America, murder is worse than the killing that takes place in the wars that we face. So the war is, for all intents and purposes, finding its way to an end. This administration, we will wake up one morning and this administration will be finished, gone, in a puff of smoke, or it will flee. Now the question, who replaces them? Well, the answer is nobody. To the cynics and the critics and the haters of freedom and the supporters of just wealth, money, and greed. No one can replace them. No one. It'll go from bad to worse. Well, that's ridiculous. It can't be worse. You could be the same, but you can't be worse than the 47 years that many of you have endured. Hundreds of thousands of his own people, thousands of others. The answer is in front of their face. And many of the answers in front of the face of the international elite, I will call them, so I can put a whole group of people into one big definition, and then you can wonder who I put in and who I didn't. But to the international elite, they know. They know about MEK. They know about Madame Rajavi. They know a lot more than you think about your 47 years. They know that you fought against the Shah bravely and for the right reasons. They know you were together with groups of others who fought against the Shah for the right reasons and bravely. They know that you were double-crossed is an American word. I hope it has meaning here, but it's a very strong word, by the, let's call it the ultra-religious forces. And that with a, we have to admit, brilliant plan, they outmaneuvered everyone, but they didn't just outmaneuver you. They then started to kill you in large, large numbers. That they haven't eliminated you is a great credit to your beliefs, your capability, your bravery, and most importantly, to the fact that you're right. And ultimately, right wins out. You're right. From the beginning, you were fighting for freedom. From the time Masoud Rajavi got out of prison to rid your movement of the few communists that tried to take it over, to his standing up to the Ayatollah and refusing to run. Because even at an early stage, when many people, at that time, people didn't know the depths of depravity that the Ayatollah was capable of. I was alive then and an adult. I was alive during Abraham Lincoln. Ha ha. Ha ha, you can laugh. You don't get it, I'm sorry. I was alive when we rode horses. So I know that would have been a much easier choice to say yes than it would be now. It had to require, Madame Rajavi, some degree of prophecy, some degree of ability to look in the future and see just how bad this man and his movement really would be. Because at the time it was bad, but it wasn't now. From that day to this day, you are their biggest opponent, the biggest opponent of Iranian theological insanity and depravity and homicidal and suicidal behavior. You're the biggest opponent of it. No one bigger, no one close. When people say, who can take over the government of Iran? There is no answer, but one. The only name that comes up is MEK, for those of us who know that it will succeed. Even to those who hope it doesn't succeed, MEK comes up, and then they practice defamation, condemnation, the things that communists and fascists are used to. So the answer, maybe I wasn't supposed to give a speech, but just give answer a question. I think now that's what I was supposed to do, but I got carried away. The reality is, the answer is simple, but obscured by the complexities of our time and somehow the corruption of our time. And the answer is to good people, to decent people. The answer is the MEK for all the right reasons. This is not a question of, are we going to go from bad to worse? That can't happen. Are we going to go from bad to bad? That would be the Shah. That would be the Shah. We'd go from bad to the son of, now, I now would use generally, if I were in New York and the mayor, a different word, the son of a thief, a murderer, a dictator, a coward, and a very successful carrying on of that tradition, except with weaker genes. There is no question in the minds of serious people that if he were to take over Iran, it would last 2 days. The man has never worked in his life. He's lived off the money he's lived off the money of the Iranian people, stolen by his crooked father and crooked mother. I tell you that as a young lawyer who was involved in recovering and identifying the money of the regime when it came over to the United States. They stole a fortune. The only reason the Ayatollah and the reign of terror stole more is inflation. If he had been there, he would have at least equaled them. If not in depravity, he wasn't as bad. But that's like saying Mussolini wasn't as bad as Hitler. He was bad, real bad. If we hadn't had a Hitler and a Stalin and a Mao Zedong, he'd be right at the top. And his son now doesn't even give us any confusion. A while back, there's a little confusion. People would say, well, maybe he's not his father. You shouldn't level the sins of the father on the son. I agree with that. Except he's accepted them. My father was the greatest leader in Iranian history. I'm proud of what my father did. As he says that, surrounding him are former Savak members. He tells us, I communicate with the IRGC. First, he said 50,000. That's a lot of communication, 50,000. Think you might be lying? Lying about the number or lying about the fact? I communicate with 100,000 IRGC. For that, had I been U.S. attorney now, I would investigate him and probably have him in jail. You're not supposed to communicate with the IRGC. It's a terrorist in America. An American or a person in America cannot communicate with the IRGC. It is a federal crime. They're a terrorist group. You've got to get permission to do it. Show me the permission, Nepo baby. So this would be absurd, absolutely absurd. So there's one group. And then if you just recognize that and take a look at what they offer, which is a 10-point plan based on freedom and democracy, a schedule of how to put it in place, and a history of behavior that shows a dedication to freedom and democracy and the rights of women that's backed up by blood and tears and sacrifice. So it's my mission to spend every chance I get to preach that message in my country and all over the world. and to express some degree of frustration, and then at times anger at those who deliberately block it. So I'm not sure I answered the question, Senator, but you got me on a subject that I'm very, very passionate about.